Good morning and welcome everyone to our 2021 Spring Move-In Q&A session. So we're just going to give everyone a few moments here to join the video, get connected and all of that good stuff. So for now, I will just share a few housekeeping items before we get started. So this session is being recorded. So if you need to reference back to it at any point in time, it will be on our UCF Housing Facebook page as well as our UCF Housing YouTube channel. So you can refer back to them on either of those locations. During our session today, you can type any questions that you have for our panelists in the comments, and we will address those here live today. So I'll go ahead and do introductions now. So my name is Hayden Lau. I am the marketing coordinator with the Department of Housing and Residence Life, and I'll be moderating our session today. We have two wonderful panelists with us. So I will go ahead and hand it over to them to introduce themselves.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Meredith Varner. I'm the Associate Director with Housing and Residence Life, overseeing the assignments and occupancy management processes.
Hello and good morning. My name is Arian L. Bryant. I serve as the Director of Residence Life and Education, and I help to oversee our residential communities.
Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate you answering questions about spring move-in and what our students and families can expect from move-in day. So we did post a call for questions on our Instagram page. So we're going to go ahead and start the conversation by addressing some of those questions that you all asked, and then we will move over to our live comments from you all. So our first question for today is, when is the official move-in date and where can I make my move-in appointment?
So great questions. We know folks have really been wanting to get that set up. If you have a room assignment with us for spring, you should have received an email on Tuesday evening letting you know that the move-in appointments are live and available for you at this point. They are available in the housing portal, so you would log into the housing portal, and there's a link on the right-hand side that links you to the move-in appointments. They are taking place from January 7th through the 10th. And so that will be on our main campus, at our Rosen campus, and at the downtown campus for those housing facilities that are there. The move-in appointments are for all spring residents. So this is whether you're new, whether you're returning, or whether you've stayed with us over the break and are still remaining in your space. If you're remaining over the break, there are appointments available for you on January 6th to go ahead and get your testing and move-in information done. So the 7th through the 10th, and you can sign in and to the housing portal to make that appointment. The appointments are about 15 minutes spaced out, and there should be plenty of them so that you can choose your day and time. And they're available from 8 to 5 all of those days on the main campus. On the Rosen and downtown campuses, there's alternating mornings and afternoons to be able to get that done.
Thank you, Meredith. So on actual move-in day, what is the day going to look like as far as the COVID testing and the check-in process?
Sure. So when you arrive, and I'll talk about the main campus first and give you what might be different about the Rosen or downtown campuses. So on the main campus, all of our residents who live on the main campus or Northview will be coming into Garage D right across from the Addition Financial Arena. The actual testing process will take place on the patio area of Addition Financial Arena. That is going to be set up with tents so that you have privacy and you obviously are out of the elements. You'll walk across from Garage D to the testing area, and you will get your rapid test. And so that will be a nasal swab. So then the results will come within 15 to 20 minutes. So while you're waiting for your results, you'll just head back to your vehicle and wait. You'll be notified electronically. As long as your test is negative, you'll be able to then proceed to your community to check in. So when you're exiting Garage D, there will be Housing and Residence Life staff there. You'll show them your result, and they will give you a wristband that will then make sure that your community knows you are okay to go ahead and encode your key and get moved back into your space or moved into your space for the first time if you are new. And I realized that I did forget an important detail in describing the sign-up process. So you do need to register for that test and appointment on our website, and then the testing vendor that is doing these tests for us will have an additional registration process for the medical piece of it. Obviously, I'm not an expert in the medical piece, and so you'll sign up for the time on our website, and then as soon as that portal for the testing registration is available, we'll get that out to you, and you'll need to do that before you arrive for your test. So you arrive at Garage D, walk over, get your swab, come back, wait for your results. Your results are negative. Get your wristband on the way out of the garage, and then head to your community. If you're moving in for the first time, you'll want to go to the community to get checked in. Anyone that's with you should be remaining in the car while you're going through these processes. We don't want to crowd the testing area or the check-in area. So for mom, dad, brother, sister, whomever is with you, make sure they stay in the car. You can have 2 folks with you in order to help you move items in if you're coming in new. So just, think about that as you're making your plans. And then you will get your card activated to be your ID and your key. You'll get the rest of the information if you're checking in new, and then you'll be able to move your items into your room. Or if you're a returning student, you'll just be able to head to your room and do what you need to do. The only differences for the Rosen campus or the downtown campus is the alternating morning and afternoon. So that will be apparent when you go into schedule. And then for the Rosen campus, the testing will be in the parking lot there. For the downtown campus, the testing will be on the street, and there is a mobile unit that will be doing that testing on both campuses. Arian, definitely fill in here if I'm missing any details. I think we might need to talk about what happens for the students that have a positive rapid test.
Absolutely. No, I think you really captured all of the main points. For those students who will be arriving on campus, that testing is going to be a part of our move-in plan for spring 2021. For those residents who do test positive, residence life staff will speak with those students to give them their options. Of course, very consistent with what we've done over the fall semester, we will be recommending that, if possible, residents will isolate back home or off campus. If that is not possible, then we will work with them. Residence life staff, housing or residence life staff will work with the residents to find isolation spaces within our residential communities. A residence life staff member will reach out and speak with the resident who has tested positive, and they're going to conduct a very short intake form. So we collect information that's going to be necessary to support that student through their isolation period. We have been running this process over the fall semester, and we have a dedicated team of individuals, and it's been running very smoothly. And so more information will be provided at that time.
Thank you both. So we have a few questions from that question. So just to clarify, will students need to make 1 or 2 appointments? So it'll be a move-in appointment, and then they will have to make a separate testing appointment?
That's a good question. So they make a move-in appointment, and then the piece for the testing is registering your information with the testing company. And so we will be sending the testing company the appointment time so they know who is coming on what day at what time. But then the additional information you need to provide to them from the medical side of things will be provided through their forms. And those are getting up and running now. So we anticipate being able to send those out to you soon. So it's not 2 separate appointments. The appointment is made with us, and we connect with the testing company to let them know when you're coming. And then you provide directly to the testing company your additional medical information they need for doing that test. Hopefully that makes sense.
Wonderful, thank you. And what about for students who don't have a car? They might be being dropped off by an Uber or coming in from the airport, something like that.
Excellent, good question. So we do have on our website the location where you should be dropped off near the parking garage. We will have spaced out seating available in the first floor of the parking garage where folks without cars who can wait, or where you can wait while you're waiting for those test results.
Thank you for that. And do guests of students have to get a COVID test that day as well?
Well, they do not need to get tested. The testing is just for students that will be living on campus.
Thank you. And Rosanna's asking who is performing the tests and who is paying for them at this time?
Sure. So UCF is paying for the rapid tests at this time. And the group that Student Health Services is working with to do the testing is called COVID Testing LLC.
Thank you, Meredith. All right, so our next question, do students need their UCF ID on move-in day? And if they don't have their UCF ID already, how would they get that?
Sure. Yes, you do need your UCF ID. That is going to be your made into your key for any of our housing areas that you live in. And so that's very important to have. If you are a newly admitted spring 2021 student who is joining UCF for the first time, we will be working with card services to obtain your card from them and have it available for you at your community for check-in. So you don't need it to identify you. What you need it for is to be programmed as your key to move into your building. And so if you're a newly admitted student and you need to submit your picture and all that stuff through the card services instructions, as long as they have that card printed for you on January 4th, we will get it from them and have it for you at check-in. If you have lost your ID or you're not a newly admitted student, then you will need to go to card services in order to obtain your card or get a reprint.
Thank you very much. So someone is asking, where is that info to register for the COVID test? We can't find that. So can we just clarify the COVID testing registration one more time?
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are looking for it and want to get on the ball with that. It's just not quite available yet. So you can sign up for your day and time on our housing portal. And then as soon as we have that information for how to register for the test, we will send it out and we will add it to our website. This is a new process for this group that we're working with and for us. And so it's taken a little bit of time to just get that up and running to make sure that it's going to run smoothly for you. So as soon as we get that information on how to do the medical side of things for the test, we will get that out to you.
Thank you, Meredith. So the next question is going to be about the COVID addendum. Are there any changes to the COVID addendum in the housing agreement? And then for new residents that are just starting to live with us in the spring, can you just go over some of the policies that are outlined in that addendum?
I can do that, Meredith. So there are no significant changes, any changes to our COVID addendum going into the spring 2021 semester. So for our residents who have been living with us in the fall, they had to sign our COVID-19 addendum to the contract to agree to some of the realities that we're dealing with on-campus housing during the time of this pandemic. Some of the key takeaways from that COVID addendum are adhering to university and departmental expectations and guidelines that are pretty much communicated to us by our campus safety professionals. That means wearing a mask on campus and within buildings at all times, making sure that we physically distance at 6 feet consistently, that we're not congregating in large groups, and that we're adhering to all of the guidance and expectations that are communicated by any university personnel with the aim of keeping everyone in our community safe. So the expectations have not changed from last semester, and they're pretty, you can find these expectations on our university website and our departmental website. So wearing a mask, physically distancing, not congregating, and of course, washing your hands regularly and exercising good judgment. One of the previous live streams I participated in, I communicated to all of you, our incoming students and our families, that this is a shared responsibility. So to make sure that our communities are safe is going to take all of our efforts. The individual actions of one person can have an impact on more people in a larger community. So we are hoping and we ask that you pay attention to the guidelines and the expectations that we're putting out in our community living guide and our housing COVID-19 addendum, guidance that is on the university website, because they are designed to make sure that we're all it's designed to for the best interests of the health and well-being of our residents, our staff members, and our visitors. So.
Thank you, Arian. So when should students buy a parking pass, and will they need to have any kind of like temporary parking pass for move-in day?
Typically, when it comes to parking passes, UCF Parking Services understands that on move-in days that there's going to be a lot of movement around campus, but we encourage all of our residents, once they're moved into their space, those who test negative, to make sure that they're making their way over to Parking Services to purchase their new pass. I believe you can purchase those online, so if you were to go online and purchase your pass, when you arrive at Parking Services, they will have your pass ready for pickup. So shortly after your arrival, it's really important for residents to make their way to Parking Services to retrieve their parking passes. And at that time, you can receive information on where the designated areas for parking for your specific residential community. That information is also found on the UCF Parking Services website.
Thank you, Arian. And we did include the link to where to purchase the parking pass in the comments. So you can just follow that link and go ahead and purchase it now. Can I
give a quick caveat? For Northview, you do not have to have a UCF parking pass in order to park at the Northview garage. If you want to bring your vehicle to campus, then you do need to get a UCF parking pass. So just something to keep in mind there. And then for Union West, the parking pass is purchased through Platinum Parking, and that information is on the Union West website. So those would be the two different kind of outliers for the parking
Thank
process.
you, Meredith. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that clarification. So back to the COVID tests, is there a cost for the test, and when should students expect their results to be returned to them?
Yeah, so there is not a cost for the rapid test that's being done during the move-in process on the 7th to the 10th or on the 6th for the students remaining over winter break. So we are not billing the students for that rapid test that is being paid for by UCF.
Correct.
Thank you. And on kind of that same note.
Sorry, I just realized I forgot the second part of that question.
Yeah.
The test results, we are expecting those to be returned within 15 to 20 minutes. And so once you get that test, you need to go wait in your vehicle or in the designated pedestrian waiting area if you don't bring a vehicle with you. And then they will be sent electronically. I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head whether that's a text message or an email, but you will get that sent directly to the student so that you have verification of that.
Thank you. And now when the students do get tested and if their result does come back positive, what are the next steps for the student? Do they isolate on campus, or what do they do from there?
Correct. So if part of our moving process is the testing. So if a resident tests positive on a rapid test, I believe, and Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong, they will be required to take a PCR test. Is that accurate? And I believe at this time, the PCR test will cost $36 and will be billed through the student's insurance. So the rapid test is free. UCF is covering that. If they test positive for the rapid test, then the PCR test, which is a more robust test that Student Health Services and our campus health professionals are going to require, is going to cost $36, and that's going to be billed through students' insurance at their cost. So residents will absorb the cost of that. So that is something important to know. If a resident tests positive, right now, the process works. Anytime there's a resident that tests positive for COVID-19, we work very closely with Student Health Services. So they communicate to us, any residential student who's living within our residential communities, Northview, Union West, Rosen, main campus. And then a Housing and Residence Life staff member will reach out to them to conduct what we call a COVID-19 intake form. That COVID-19 intake form is pretty much facilitated over the course of 30 minutes, and we're asking a range of different questions to get information that's going to help us better support that student through the duration of their isolation. So we know when they're going in, and based upon the information that's provided to us from Student Health Services, we know when they're going to be released. But that time in between, we need to know, will we need to support them with deliveries? Will we need to support them with meals? Do they have any other extending situations that are going to require some additional support? So during that COVID-19 intake form, we're collecting that information. The staff member from Housing and Residence Life will then work with them and provide them instructions on how their isolation key will be dropped off, what they need to pack up to move to their isolation space, how long they'll be there, and that they will remain there until they receive a release from Housing and Residence Life via email through our Housing Start Red system. Now, residents do have the ability to quarantine and isolate off campus. That's what we initially recommend. But if residents choose to quarantine or isolate on campus, we do have sufficient dedicated spaces to put students for that period of time. And once a student has satisfied their quarantine or isolation time, they will receive email notification and a text message from Housing and Residence Life, letting them know that they're released. And then additional instructions are provided to those residents on how they need to move from their isolation space back into their permanent space. So we've been working with this process over the past semester, fall semester, and it's working very well. So information is provided to residents at time of notification, and we work very closely with the residents to walk them through that process so they understand exactly what's happening, and we collect information that is needed to make sure that they're best supported and supported well.
Thank you, Arian. So our next question, what if our student needs to be moved in before January 7th? Are they able to do that, or what would that process look like?
At this point, if your student is new or if they are returning to an academic year space, so Apollo, Libra, Hercules, Nike, Lake Claire, and Neptune, the answer to that question is no. January 7th is the absolute earliest that we can move in new students or students returning to areas that were not open over the winter break. For students who live in areas that were open over the winter break, our annual facilities that includes Towers, Northview, Rosen, and Union West, there is a process that's been communicated to those students about having their key cards re-encoded over the break, and then they do need to get that test done on January 6th. So if there's more questions about your student-specific situation, if you want to send that to us, we can help advise you. But because the testing starts on the 7th for incoming students and students returning to our academic areas, that is the absolute earliest. And to be clear, the reason that this is being done is to try to have somewhat of a clean slate in terms of a as safe as possible environment in terms of COVID-free for our residents on campus. And so this is the time frame that the testing is taking place. So this is when move-in's taking place.
Thank you, Meredith. The next question is a little bit more about our isolation process. So probably for you, Arian, is it a 10 or 14-day quarantine once the student tests positive? And do the students need to get multiple negative tests to be able to move back into their space?
At this time, multiple negative tests are not required for a student to return back to campus if they quarantine and isolate off campus, or to return back to their permanent space if they're quarantining or isolating on campus. So negative tests aren't required. Once they have satisfied that period of quarantine and isolation that has been determined by our campus health professionals, they are at that point deemed to be safe to move back to the permanent community. The second part of that question was, remind me again, Hayden, because I want to make sure that I answer it.
The 14 or 10-day.
That's a great question, right? So we recognize that, this pandemic has been an evolving situation, and there's been a lot of guidance that has changed and trickling down from the federal level to the state level. As of right now, it appears that there can be a change in the quarantine and isolation period. From what I understand, it's going to be shortened from 14 days to 10 days. But that information is something that we communicate to the resident at time of isolation. So they know exactly how long Student Health Services has communicated to residents, Housing and Residence Life, how long that student needs to be in quarantine and isolation. And this is contingent upon a number of factors, right? It really depends on when they got the test, when they started exhibiting symptoms. But from what I understand, that expectation, that quarantine isolation period may be decreasing, but until residents will receive that information at time of isolation. So I don't want to say that definitively, but I do want to acknowledge there has been some talk of that isolation period shortening based upon the guidance at the state and federal level.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that answer. So Jennifer just wants to double check that she doesn't have to do anything else. So great to just cross your T's, dot your I's here. So she set her appointment in the housing portal. What's the next step?
Yeah, Jennifer, so thank you for being on the ball and getting your appointment set up, or your student's appointment set up. The next step will be to register with COVID Testing LLC as soon as we have that link ready for you. And so just, I would say, keep paying attention to your Knight's email, or if you're a Valencia student, your Valencia email, to get that information. And as soon as we have it, we will push that out to students, and we will also put it on our website. So that'll be the next step that you need to do. And then after that, you're just getting your stuff packed up and getting ready to join us on the day that you scheduled your appointment for. The other things that we're asking you to do on our website are kind of some things to think about. So we do want you to think about your isolation plan. So think about, if I do test positive on the check-in day, what am I going to do? Am I going to return home? Am I going to request an isolation space on campus? Am I going to isolate somewhere off campus? So just go ahead and think about that. Discuss with your family so that you kind of know what it is that you want to do. And we have a suggested list of things to have ready to take with you into isolation if you do need to isolate with us on campus. So that's important to go ahead and just think about the what ifs. Now, we know that most folks will test negative and will move in just fine, and it'll be great, but it is important to go ahead and have that in mind. And then while you're on campus getting your test, you'll also need to fill out the COVID self-checker on the UCF mobile app. So if you haven't downloaded the UCF mobile app, you'll want to do that. And I know I'm talking very fast and throwing out a bunch of to-dos at you, but this information is in a bulleted list on the website. And so you can kind of like go through and check that off for yourself, but you will need to show us the self-checker to be able to get into housing as well. Just knowing that you're not having any symptoms, no fever, you haven't traveled, those types of things.
Mm-hmm. And Meredith, thank you for reiterating some of those points too. Part of our move-in plan, you'll have to show us your results, right? That you're negative. And there is a university expectation that you're filling out your self-checker each and every day that you're on campus. Part of the move-in plan, so we can identify people who are cleared to move in, you're going to be receiving armbands. It's really important that you keep those armbands on for the duration of time that you're told to, so we can visually see who's been cleared to move on campus. Anybody who does not have those armbands, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to engage them in conversations and re-verify that they're okay to be on campus, and they've walked through all of the proper steps that we put in place to make sure that move-in is as safe as possible.
Thank you both. So on move-in day, are we going to have any kind of like hand carts or dollies or move-in bins or anything like that available for checkout?
We will, at this present time, we are still discussing that. Of course, as you can imagine, there are some complexities with providing that type of move-in equipment and cleaning, but it is our hope that we will have the traditional move-in equipment available to students and families to move in, which include bins, hand carts, and dollies. More information will be provided once you arrive at your community office and you need that equipment. We also suggest, even outside of COVID-19 pandemic times, we encourage families, if they can, to bring their own move-in equipment with them, because our move-in equipment is very limited and it can be used very quickly. So we encourage you to bring your own move-in equipment, but we are very hopeful that we will have move-in equipment available, and we'll have a plan in place to make sure that they're properly disinfected as we're making those available to our residents and families.
Thank you, Arian. So another question about appointments here. So Bonnie just wants to clarify, their daughter has a testing date and time. We're told she doesn't need to make a separate move-in appointment. Is that accurate? So could we just clarify the appointments, making sure everyone knows what we're doing, we're on the right track here?
Sure. So if you've made an appointment through the housing portal, you would have clicked on a link that says, and this is a very long link in the housing portal, it says Spring 2021 COVID-19 Testing and Move-In Appointment, January 7th through the 10th. If you've gone through there and made that appointment, that is your appointment to arrive on campus and get your testing. You will need to do some additional registration with COVID Testing LLC to provide them the medical information that they need to do that test and to provide you the results. That is not a separate appointment. That is being done at the same time that you've scheduled that appointment in the housing portal. It's just that they will need some additional information to make sure they've got the medical side of things squared away. So you don't need a separate appointment. You will just have more paperwork to fill out, if that makes sense. We just want to make sure that we get all of that information. And so that will be sent out to you as soon as it's available for you to fill it out. So the appointment is made in the housing portal, and then the additional information will be provided to COVID Testing LLC for the testing piece, but it's not a separate appointment.
Thank you, Meredith. So just a few reminders for our families on Move-In Day. Make sure that you bring your facial coverings. Make sure, of course, you're social distancing in our lines. When you are in line to get your test, make sure you're spaced out in those lines. Try to just take one family, group family up an elevator at a time. So just, those simple reminders to keep your distance. And use sanitizer, wash your hands, all that good stuff. I think Erin already mentioned some of those, common practices these days, but there is the mask policy that we have on campus. So just make sure that you do have that facial covering with you. Is our students, sorry, were you going to say something, Erin?
Yes, I was. There was one piece, and Meredith, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's going to be very similar to our fall move-in, that we are asking residents who are returning back to campus, either returning or new residents, to limit the people that they're bringing with us to, I believe it's 2 people. So, and we're doing that because we want to make sure that we're controlling for congestion in and around community spaces and going up elevators, as Hayden mentioned. So when you're coming to campus, we're asking that you bring no more than 2 people with you. And that's specifically that we're asking that specifically to make sure that we're controlling for the number of people in and around our communities during these move-in days. Thank you, Hayden, for bringing that up too.
Thank you both very much. So are students able to bring an external test result with them to move-in as proof of, a negative test result?
They are not. The requirement is to have the testing done through the Student Health Services approved process that will be taking place with COVID Testing LLC. Thank
you for clarifying that. Mm-hmm. And let's see, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to send them in. It does look like we've gotten to most of them. Let me just check the comments here, see if there's anything else we can add. Do either of you have anything to add while I'm looking through here?
No, just excited to see everybody return back to campus in the spring. For our returning residents, we look forward to seeing your faces again. For our new residents, we're excited to see you. And just keep in mind, we're doing everything that we're putting in place requires the effort of a dedicated team within Housing and Residence Life, but also our wonderful partners across our university. Because we want to ensure that we are maintaining the highest quality of health, well-being, safety for all of our community members. But again, as I stressed in the past, and this is something I've stated with my staff and on previous live streams, it is a shared responsibility. So we're asking that continue to ask really good questions. These are really good questions. So we can provide you with details if anything's not clear, and adhering to the expectations, specifically the COVID-19 health regulations that are communicated on the university and department websites. And we're just excited for another successful semester, and we look forward to your arrival.
I would definitely echo that. And I have a small detail piece that I just received some clarification on. So Arian, earlier you had mentioned a figure of $36. And so that is not the cost for the PCR test. That is the cost that UCF is paying for tests for the rapid test. So that cost is not passed on to students for the rapid test. I don't know the cost of the PCR test, but that is billed through insurance. And so I think if students have more questions about that, send those in and we can and try to get clarification, but we don't have the exact cost of the PCR test at this time. And so the rapid test, again, is not billed to students. UCF is covering that cost.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. Thank you for correcting that,
Mary. I wasn't sure either. I wanted to go back, and so someone sent me some additional information.
Okay.
So there's a lot of moving parts with this, as you can imagine. And so we are trying to make sure we get all the information as correct as possible.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So question here from Janie. What about students who have to arrive outside of that window of the 7th through the 10th?
Sure. So that's a great question. We do want to make sure that everyone understands that students must have a negative test result in order to move in. And so one situation that may happen is if a student arrives late, testing will be done by about 5:15 each day. And so if you arrive later than your time frame and it's past 5 p.m., you may need to find alternate accommodations and arrive for testing the next day. So really, really important to get there by the testing time to make sure you can get in and get tested. We will not be able to check students in and allow them to test the next day. They will have to get tested and then move in or have returned to their room. If you cannot move in during the 7th to the 10th, you will then work with Student Health Services to schedule a test and have a negative result prior to being moved in. And so then Student Health Services would let us know that a student is approved to move in once they've reviewed that negative test result. So you would work with them on that. That process is still being completely ironed out. So I think if you were to contact them now, they don't have a scheduling thing set up just yet, but are working to get that together. So if you arrive after the 10th, then you would still need to get that negative test in order to move in. And so please understand that while this could be inconvenient for some students, we really want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to provide you the safest possible environment. And having these tests in place is one of the ways that we're really trying to do that.
Thank you, Meredith. Yeah. So great question here from Kathy, kind of thinking ahead. If the students, if a student doesn't live on campus this year, can they reapply for fall of 2021 as a sophomore?
Yeah, that's a great question. So fall 2021 housing applications are open now for incoming freshmen and for returning students. Students who are living off campus are eligible for our lottery process for the Northview apartments. And so they can apply for that now, and the lottery results will be announced at the end of January. Students who live off campus are also eligible to apply for the Rosen Apartments or Union West at the downtown campus. And so those two facilities are not on a lottery process. They are on a first come, first serve basis. And to clarify, the lottery process is a random number generated drawing that we do for students who want to return to campus, students who live off campus, and transfer students. The majority of our housing is reserved for the incoming freshman class every year. And so then the additional spaces are lotteried off to the students who are off campus, transfer students, or returning to campus. And sorry, I should clarify as well, that information is available on our website. Under the apply link, there is a returning residence link that describes the lottery process.
Thank you, Meredith. So I will actually go ahead now and share my screen and show you all the move-in page on our website. So I'm just going to move us here. Actually, let me make sure you can hear me. So this is the move-in website. So lots of really great information here. All things move-in, and we're going to go ahead and put the link to this in the comments. But I do want to just point out we have a great interactive map here. Let's see, let me scroll in and just show you all. You can actually find where the COVID testing will take place, all of our housing communities, there's parking information. So a really great Google map. You can click on these and have directions right to where you need to go. So that's a really great resource here. I would definitely recommend using that. And just go ahead and read through this before move-in, and just have a little bit more information that you can always reference back to as well. All righty. So we're being asked for Union West. Where do you park for move-in day?
For move-in day, incoming residents will be able to park at the Union West garage. So you'll be directed to park on one of the floors, and you'll be directed then to make your way to the check-in stations, the testing and then check-in stations.
Thank you, Arian. All right. So it's looking like last call for questions here. We had a couple questions about parking for downtown, so address that. A few more follow-up questions on the lottery. It looks like that's being answered in the comments here. So let's see. Looks like that about covers it. Do either of you have anything else to add for MoveIn or anything else that you can think of?
I did want to clarify on the lottery questions. And so towers and the academic year facilities on campus are available for the lottery for returning residents only, just to clarify that. So students living off campus or transfer students are eligible for the Northview lottery.
Thank you, Meredith. We did have a question from Joanna about the rapid test. How is that test administered? Is it a nasal swab or?
Yeah, it's a nasal pharyngeal. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but they are going to stick the swab pretty far back in your nose to get a good sample. And so it's done similar to the PCR test, that the swab, as far as I understand it, and then it is tested right there on site to get you the results.
Thank you for clarifying that, Meredith. All right. So if there aren't any more questions, which I'm not seeing, sorry, we have one more question just popped in. So we'll just take our last few as they come in here. So not about MoveIn, but Julie is asking, can transfer students choose anything other than Northview or Rosen?
Transfer students would also have access to apply for Union West at our downtown campus. And then additionally, if they're looking for other housing options near the main campus, we would highly recommend our affiliated housing at Knights Circle. We do have our residence life staff there, so there are RAs, resident assistants, in each building. And that leasing process is done through Knights Circle as a separate process. It's not part of the UCF housing application in the housing portal, but that is a great option for transfer students or students looking to perhaps gain a little bit more independence as they move through their years on campus. And so that would be something to take a look at as well.
Thank you very much. All right, so that is all we have. I would definitely recommend looking at that MoveIn webpage, checking out that map, just kind of get a feel for the area before you arrive on campus. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. And we hope you all have a great rest of your day. Happy holidays, and we are very excited to see you all in January. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Happy holidays.